Well, growing up, personally, I was given a lot of responsibility. I had to make my bed. I had to clean my room. I had to pick up what I got out. I had to clean the garage periodically. I had to mow the yard every week. I had to clean up the dog area. So I was just responsible for a lot. And then at the age of 12 years old, I got a paper route. I was in charge of, 60 customers during the week and about 100 on Sunday that I had to deliver to every single day. And then I also, about the age of 14, I got a vegetable route with a buddy, and we would drive around on the back of a pickup truck. Imagine that. And they would drop us off, and we would carry baskets full of vegetables and go door to door and sell vegetables. And we made so much per basket that we sold. I still think today that would be a good job to have today, just because people are really into organic, fresh vegetables. A lot of people don't have gardens, go door to door, sell fresh vegetables. But anyway, so I was just, I was given a lot of responsibility, and I accepted it. And it was the norm. When you took your shoes off at the door, you carried your shoes to your room. You didn't leave them at the door. There were just little things that we had to do, and it was called responsibility. Now, fast forward to today, at McAfee Heating and Air and Plumbing, when we hire someone between the ages of 18 and 25, we are very concerned about, did they have responsibility as a kid? Because if they were given responsibility, then more than likely they'll work out here at McAfee. But if they were just handed a smartphone at a very young age as a babysitter and they played games all day, then they're probably not going to work out here well. Because working at McAfee, there's a lot of responsibility. We empower you and teach you how to be responsible for your daily jobs, your daily duties, whatever it might be. So it's sad for the guys that were not given responsibility growing up. Shame on those parents. But also, I'm more concerned about, are you a good fit for my company? And will you succeed here? So that's important. And let me throw this in as well. If you're planning on having a second generation or a third generation, let that generation fall. Let that generation skin their knee. Let them answer some tough questions. When I coach companies and I'm coaching father, son, or uncle, nephew, whatever it might be, I ask specific questions to that next generation, because that next generation is going to have to make some tough decisions without that first generation being around. And I want to see what kind of answers I get from them. And when I'm coaching on the phone or on Zoom, and generation 1 or 2, whatever it might be, is answering all my questions that I ask to that next generation, that is frustrating. And it is not fair to that next generation who's going to take over one day. And maybe if first generation gets thrown under the bus, there is no one to call and ask. So think about that. What happens? I ask my son Travis, we meet every single morning at around 6 a.m. and spend an hour together going over business stuff, what happened yesterday, and we do a devotional of some sort together, which is always interesting and fun. So I'm constantly asking him, what if this happens? What would you do? What if? Now, let's own it. Hey, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Now let's get started. Welcome back to the Greg McAfee Show, where we discuss steps to successful entrepreneurship, how to take your business to new heights, and ultimately follow your dreams. Today, we're going to be discussing Own It, the power of stepping up. You know, business owners are responsible for a lot of things. Let's face it. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of liability. There's just a lot going on in a business owner entrepreneurial life. Number one, there's growth. You're responsible for growing your company. There's stability. You've got to have stability within your company. You're responsible for that. There's direction, daily operation of the business. That's you. If you're the owner of the company, that is you. It is your responsibility. If you say, Greg, I don't want all this responsibility, then you shouldn't own your own business. You'll do quite well going and working for someone else. But if you're the owner, you also have to set the culture you want for your company. You have to hire the right people. Now, eventually, you'll get to a place where other people are hiring, but they have to know how to hire the right people. That's very important. Now, I want to define responsibility. It's the quality of being accountable, trustworthy, and reliable. It can also refer to the authority or control one has over something or someone. In both personal and business settings, responsibility can involve carrying out tasks, accepting consequences, and making contributions. We're going to discuss the impact of responsibility on our character, on our reputation, and just what's expected of us. Okay? So here's two quick stories. One of them was a previous employee years ago, and one of them is me. So we'll just say the guy's name was Rob, and Rob was driving one of our box trucks, and he was coming back to the office rather, from a job. Rob decided to take the box truck through a drive-through bank. It didn't quite clear. It had about 2 inches, but Rob decided to go ahead and drive through the drive-through anyway. Once he hit the wood trim underneath the drive-through, he just kept going. So he ripped all that trim off. My box truck at the time, I had actually bought it used, and it had a sunroof on it. It sheared off the sunroof and did a lot of damage to the bank, basically. So the bank called me right away and said, your truck just came through the drive-through. It didn't fit. It did a lot of damage. Wonderful, right? You always like to get those calls, right? So I waited for Rob to call me to let me know what he had done, and he came. We were working out of the garage at the time. He came back, parked the box truck, said he had a problem. I thought, well, good, he's going to own it. Okay, that's what this is called, own it. Rob's going to own it. Instead, Rob said, hey, I was driving down the highway on the way back to the office, and the sunroof blew off. I said, the sunroof blew off? He goes, yeah, I got it. He brought it in. I said, it probably didn't have anything to do with going through the bank drive-through, did it? His eyes got about that big. I fired him right there. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think I've ever fired anyone for telling me the truth, but I can tell you I can count on one hand how many people I've fired instantly for lying to me, because I will not put up with lying. Rob didn't own it. Rob made up a story. Had Rob owned it and told me the truth, I wouldn't have fired him. I would have been extremely upset, but I would not have fired him had he just told me the truth. Had he owned it, and had he stepped up and owned it, he would have still been an employee at the time. Story number 2, me. I'm driving down the road. I'm driving to a call. I was running sales calls back then. Back when we had the flip phones, I looked down at the phone for a minute, bam, hit a mailbox. Turned around, went back, demolished the mailbox. Didn't do much damage to my truck, but I demolished this mailbox. Texting and driving, Probably wasn't even a law back then, but texting and driving. And so I went up to the door. Nobody was at the door. Now, there weren't cameras back then. There weren't all this stuff we have today. I could have easily drove away. I didn't have to own it. Nobody was home. Nobody knew. Anybody could have hit the mailbox. But I went back to my truck and I wrote a note and left my card. I said, I hit your mailbox. Let me know what I owe you. I can have someone come out and fix it, or I can pay for you to have it fixed however you want it. They called me. They were a little upset about it, but they thanked me for telling me the truth and owning it. And I owned it and I paid for it. And I felt good about it. I slept good that night. That's owning it. That's stepping up. Dr. Stephen Covey said this, I am not a product of my circumstances. I'm a product of my decisions. And when we make the right decisions and when we are responsible, we will be more successful and we will sleep better at night because we can tell the truth and we can deal with what we've done. Okay? Now here's some key habits that foster personal responsibility. And one of them is just be honest. Just be honest and own it. Fess up, tell the truth, deal with the consequences, and move on. And then be quick to apologize and forgive. It's just worth it. Be quick to apologize, be quick to forgive, and move on. That's owning it. That's stepping up. That's being responsible. Have regular self-reflection. You need some downtime where you have personal reflection. Think back, how'd my day go? How'd my week go? Think about those things. It helps us be more responsible for what we've done or what we're going to do or anything else. Accept failures and learn from them. None of us are perfect. None of us walk on water. Accept your failures, learn from them, and move on. A failure does not put me under. A failure is aggravating, frustrating, but I move on. I fix it and I move on. And that's one of my keys to success in life and business. I don't get stuck in the muck of my failures. I move on. And I challenge you to do the same thing if you don't. Be outcome driven and realize that being responsible sometimes will bring delayed gratification. And everybody wants instant gratification. But sometimes when you're responsible and you realize you're outcome driven, that's delayed gratification. And sometimes you just got to wait for things. But it's worth waiting for. It's not very sexy, but it pays off in the long run. And there's many examples I can give you that I have delayed because of the outcome, being outcome driven. What's this going to do for me later? Not right now. What's this going to do for me later? Building my business slowly. What did it do for me later? Well, 34 years later, I'm number one in my market, and I have been for 8 years. And a lot of the companies that came in quickly are gone. I mean, gone. I could probably tell you 30 companies that came in quickly, got a big loan, bought brand new trucks, bought all this fancy stuff. They're gone. Greg was slow. Little slow growth, but it paid off. The outcome was worth it, okay? Outcome driven, all right? Now, we also have to overcome the blame game. Blaming someone is not very responsible. And it's something that hampers growth. It hampers growth in your business. When people are blaming someone or something about, it's the excuse of why something didn't work or why it's not successful or why they didn't sell or why they didn't fix the problem the first time or anything like that. It's the blame game. And blaming someone is not owning it and not stepping up and moving on. So responsibility is owning it. It's a mindset that says, I'm the person that must make this happen. Whether it stems from your belief because your job requires it, or some social force binding you to this obligation, but responsibility is owning it. It's a mindset. I don't have to think twice about it. My responsibility to take my family to church when all my kids were at home, that was my mindset. I was driven. My kids never had to wake up on a Sunday morning and ask, Dad, are we going to church today? That wasn't an option. We go to church every Sunday, Lord willing, if we can. They never had to ask. They never did ask. They just knew. Sunday mornings, we're going to church. And we used to go Sunday night and Wednesday nights when they had the services. But that was responsibility for me as a Christian, as a dad, as a husband. We just did. And I just came up with that example, but that's a great example of responsibility for me, my beliefs. Now, here's 3 things that owning it. If you own it, here's what it's going to do for you. Okay? You ready? Number 1, it's empowerment. It's empowerment. Taking responsibility for your life gives you power. It shapes your destiny. It also helps you build confidence. Make choices that align with your goals and create the life you want to live. Boy, that's exciting. That's responsibility. That's what responsibility does for you. It's empowering. And then other people see it. When I started losing weight, which I'm in the single digits now of losing 100 pounds, it's exciting. It's hard because I'm gaining a lot of muscle working out, so having to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time, it's extremely hard. It's called something composition change, but I mean, it's hard, okay? But we're getting there. Number 2, here's what owning it does for you. It's personal growth. Owning your actions and your decisions. Letting that homeowner know I hit their mailbox. I owned it. You learn from your mistakes. You develop a resilience and you grow as a person. That's what responsibility does for you. Giving responsibility to your children is the best thing you can do. Letting them fall and skin their knee is the best thing you can do. Let them get back up. Let them learn. Best thing you can do. And lastly, owning it brings freedom. Everybody wants freedom. Being responsible for your life frees you from the blame. You're responsible for your life. It frees you from excuses. It frees you from victimhood. It frees you from, woe is me. Why has this happened to me? Why is this always happened to me? You don't have that when you have freedom and responsibility, freedom from responsibility. It's a sense of direction. You know where to go. It builds you. Starting someone young and giving them responsibility builds them so they can handle more and more and more responsibility. The problem today is some of these 18 to 25-year-olds, you give them responsibility, they don't know what to do with it. Now, don't walk away here saying Greg's against 18 to 25-year-olds because he hires a lot of them and he has one as a child. But they're given responsibility. My child, they've been given responsibility for years, since they were probably 5. Empty trash, do this, do that. That's responsible. Take the dog out. Do this, do that. The list can go on and on. But it gives you a sense of direction. And again, it builds confidence, and confidence is everything. Give your team responsibility. More responsibility you can give your team, it empowers them, and they will stay with you longer because they have a purpose and a mission at your company. Now, personally, as a Christian, I'm accountable to God. I have to answer to God. One day I'll have to stand before Him and give an account of my life. But I'm accountable to God. And God owns my business. I'm just a steward of it. I just manage the darn thing. I try to manage it the best I can. I try to manage people. I try to manage finances. I try to manage customers. I try to manage growth. I try to manage a lot of things. I'm responsible for it. It matters to God. I believe it matters to God if we're profitable. I believe it matters to God if we're efficient. And I believe it matters to God how much we're helping others. It's not about me. It's about the next generation, of helping them learn a trade that will give them a job the rest of their life with an extremely high income. And we've seen nothing yet with all these darn changes coming down the pike. These jobs, these trade jobs, are going to be extremely high-paying jobs. 1.5 to 2 times more than any 4-year college degree you can get job. I guarantee it. So, my challenge I want to leave to you today is own it. Own everything in your company. Own it. Take responsibility. We just did a job the other day, and they said we did some damage to a washer that we never touched. We did touch the dryer, but we never touched the washer. The washer will not run now. And I said, own it. Just own it. Fix it. Have it fixed. Own it. We've scratched pianos in rooms we were never in. Okay? We owned it. We broke hose spigots on spigots that we never used. We own it. Just own it. Step up and own it. Worst case scenario, you do this very expensive job for someone, and a $90 spigot repair keeps you from being a 5-star review. Okay? Think about it. Just own it. So here's my challenge to you. Increase your responsibility from 1 to 10% on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Take one small step towards greater responsibility in your life as a parent, as a spouse, as a business owner, as a friend. Take one small step towards greater responsibility in your life and in your business, and you will see things happen like they've never happened before. And your success rate will climb. It may not climb overnight, but it will climb. Your recognition as a company will climb. Trust me, we went from $274 and then at one time, we started winning some of the greatest awards that you could win in our area. And we just kept winning. It just kept going. From owning it, from stepping up, from being responsible, a responsible business owner, or a responsible business in our market. And it just took off and it soared. And like I said, we're number 1 in the residential market in our market. And that's hard to do. It doesn't matter how many millions you do in sales in the hottest climate in the country. Are you number 1 in your market? That's what matters. And we just like to be number 1. I always like to be number 1. As soon as I lose 100 pounds, I'm in the 1 percentile of Americans who can lose 100 pounds within a 9-month period without drugs or surgery. I like being in the 1 percentile, okay? So anyway, increase 1 to 10%. It'll change your life. It'll change your world, okay? All right. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe below. You can always support this podcast by rating on iTunes or your preferred listening platform. Keep listening. I'll do my best to keep challenging you. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Greg McAfee Show. No spaces, no underscores. Be sure to tune in next week. Got some good stuff coming. As always, carry on. God bless. Make it a great day today, because we're not promised tomorrow. See you later.